Hey everyone, this is Tom Seymour with VHS Massacre. I'm here with my best friend, Mr. Tim Kulig. How
What's
you
up,
doing?
everybody? How's it
Yeah,
going?
for those of you who don't know, Tim's on the road to 1,000 songs
Dope.
that anyone could use for free. He's at 800 something right now.
Tom just exported a file, ProRes, of Video Dreams today.
Yeah, it's absurd. For the setup, Video Dreams is a feature-length documentary that Tim and I are working on. Tim's producing and narrating and providing music, and end crawl music is great, by the way. It's basically chronicles 30 years of filmmaking. I see it as actually chronicling 30 years of American independent filmmaking from the early 90s till now. It definitely is through my perspective, but also through the perspective of Tim and a number of filmmakers I worked with over the years.
Yeah, for sure. And
But,
it's been an interesting journey, Tom, because there's a lot of things that are lost to the annals of time, right? You know, you have this experience and you build your professional and your creative life off of those experiences, one over another. It's really easy to lose track of the core foundational things that helped you get to the person you are today, right?
yeah.
And doing a retrospect like this and looking back on those different periods of time and the different projects that we chose at those times, I think is a testament to what it takes as a creator to build their creative CV, if you will. And to see like, man, we do this certain level or this certain tier of things now and we take it for granted, but like it took 30 years to get there. And it's no wonder that you look at somebody when they're super successful and like you're only seeing the tip of the iceberg, right? I see a lot of content creators and stuff that talk about that like it's that myopia of looking at somebody that's successful. You see the tip of their success but you don't see everything else that's underneath it. And I think this movie talks about all that. It talks about all the struggle, all the times that you have this like massive amount of doubt and decide like, do I even want to fucking do this anymore? Like how many times as a creator has that creeped into your brain? I mean, it's totally done that to me, but you have to push through it, right?
Yeah, I actually think back to very early 90s. Like, I think technically we start in 1993 with the doc, but even in like junior high, where I was playing around with Super 8 and stuff like that. But when me and you were shooting random videos in my backyard as teenagers, other Gen X filmmakers, like we're younger Gen Xers,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess you could call them our peers. I don't know if that's appropriate, but filmmakers like Kevin Smith, Robert Rodriguez, Quentin Tarantino, Linklater, although he's a little older, Spike Lee, they were already going. Actually, Spike Lee is even Linklater and Spike Lee. Actually, you would put them back into the 80s because they started earlier.
Yeah.
So, but while we were getting started, these guys were already having these huge breakthroughs. And so I recently watched a 3-hour interview with it was a Lex Friedman interview with Robert Rodriguez, and it was fascinating. It was enlightening. I forgot how much I learned from Robert Rodriguez and his book, Rebel Without a Crew. That book, and also
That was super early on, right? Was that before EMA? Everything Moves Alone?
yeah, for sure. Like,
Yeah.
I think we were already shooting, and then his book came out, and that was like, oh, okay, that and John Russo's movie making book, I think, kind of inspired us to try to leap over to film. But I guess I brought it up because it's very interesting. There are people that really pop through with real genius, like Robert Rodriguez. When you hear him talk for 3 hours, you just realize like he's very humble. He won't admit it. The guy is very much a genius, not just a creative genius, like an actual genius, because of the amount of technical things he was able to overcome and push through on like very little money. So, it's hard not to be reflective on those things and turn it on yourself and be like, God, why couldn't we have made it huge like they did,
And it's funny, it takes a show like that, it takes a Lex Friedman or a Joe Rogan show to really pull those details out, right? Because I'm kind of preaching to the choir when it comes to podcasting and everything when I'm talking to you, but honestly, a longer format show really gets into the nuts and bolts of like what somebody's all about, right? And then like these standard things where you have like a 6 or 7 minute puff piece on a late night talk show, like you don't really get into the weeds of anything. You barely even talk to the person. How can you even say that you have somebody on as a guest and interview when you have like no like minutes, you know?
I think that the reason why those shows used to work, like late shows, was because the person being on was the thing. So their fame was the thing that made people watch. Because before that, there's not much internet, didn't know that much about him.
Right.
The curtain was still up. So them being famous was enough. And some were talented and some definitely were not talented. But, the fame was the thing. But now, like, that's definitely not enough. It's super vacuous and empty. And the shroud has been pulled away. And we see that how badly some of these people are behaved. And so what happens as you get older, you're looking for more in-depth information.
Yeah.
I'd rather hear from a scientist for 3 hours or,
Yeah. Yeah. And if the pacing is slow, that's what the 1.2, 1.5 or whatever. My daughter listens to it at like 2.0. She's like listening to a podcast on, I don't know how you comprehend it at that speed, but my brain doesn't work that fast. But
well, the other thing too is like, when people were making films back in the day, often not so much in the 50s and 60s studio era, that stuff was a little stale. But by the time you got to the 70s, a lot of it was about being out and on location and all that stuff. And so there are films made like William Friedkin's The Sorcerer, I always reference, because like those people are miserable. They're in like an incredibly hot climate. Friedkin's crazy, so he shot in some impoverished village area, and those people are, you can just tell the elements are wearing on them. They're sweating all the time, and that kind of stuff is, it's a little nuts. Who else does that? The guy, Werner Herzog used to do a lot of that with, what's the guy's name? I can't think of his name, but anyway, he used to do a lot of these films where just out in the middle of the jungle and stuff like that.
God.
And people are miserable, and it's hot, and there's insects everywhere. People are getting sick, and there's not enough.
I can't imagine what the Predator shoot was like, because that was a lot of jungle scenes.
I think Fitzcarraldo is what I'm thinking of.
Okay.
But yeah, Predator couldn't have been fun. There's no way. And also trying to wrangle all those dudes, all those roided out alpha males.
God.
Like,
yeah.
We were talking about that story goes around the internet all the time. It's not even a story, legit, that the guy who played Billy,
Yeah.
they had
a wrangler for him, right?
They had a wrangler
he was nuts.
for him, yeah. Yeah, and that guy's huge.
Yeah.
So the wrangler was like a giant.
Right.
It
was probably one of Schwarzenegger's buddies from, the gym or something like that. I've seen a couple people in like, I don't know if it was the original Pumping Iron or if it was like some ancillary thing of like footage of him in the gym or whatever. And I saw this one guy, like there's a guy that plays security in The Running Man that kind of tells the show leader, the guy, like, you're on your own with him towards the end of the movie. Because I just recently watched it again and I freaking love it. I'm like, this is great. It's just such a nostalgia. But that guy, and I forget the actor's name, but turns out I've seen him in footage in the gym with Schwarzenegger too. So like, dude, he brought his buddies in, into different movies, even if it was like a bit part. He's like, yeah, dude, you gotta try to break in with me, man. Like let's do this.
Yeah. And that's interesting too about independent filmmaking, or, well, that's studio filmmaking, but this concept of peer groups and how, whether you're an independent filmmaker or, a big star, you go through peer groups. If you stay creative and you keep making stuff and you're determined, your peer groups will change. And it's hard. You want to hold on to old friends and all that stuff. But in regard to the filmmaking we do and the music that you do, I've had no choice but to move forward and make new friends and do new, have new adventures in order to like keep making films. And I've had a number of friends that have just dropped out and they've stopped,
Well, part of that too is like, in our late teens and 20s, and maybe even to our late 20s, early 30s, plenty of people had, their first line or first tier of their careers, still building relationships, both in the work environment and in the personal environment. Mid to late 20s. I mean, our generation kind of hung on to dating for a lot longer, and then people are getting married in late 20s to early to mid 30s, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so once some of those major life events start taking fold and people start having kids and everything, like that, I completely understand why like a bunch of people fall off the radar. You know what I mean? Like their priorities change and they may still have a passion for all this stuff, but things change. I mean, I had to shift gears at some point and I was less involved with certain movies. Like I think I came on set for some of Atlanta College Prophets. I wasn't actually in the film, but I did some stuff behind the scenes and virtually not really involved in London Betty. And then it sparked back up. And I mean, looking back at it, that's around the time that my daughter was born. So it makes perfect sense. That comfort, coupled with the fact that I was doing a master's degree and everything. Like, so yeah, like priorities shift around, but you and I have somehow found a way to keep that thread and keep moving forward together and encouraging each other. Like, no, man, like you got to keep going. Like sometimes you've been down the dumps about, where things are at and like ideas and everything. And then we'll just do stuff like this. We'll like hang out and ideate and chat about like, well, what are we interested in right now? What's really exciting us right now?
Well, it works because our talents accent each other's work.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some synergy there. We're both highly driven and we both do a lot. We don't, how they say some people talk and some people do.
Mm-hmm.
We definitely are doers.
Yeah.
And there's not that many people out there like us. And it's like I've been in the CUNY system for 15 years. And the truth is not everyone, when they find out how hard it is to make a movie, like to make a serious feature-length movie, most of them won't bother because it's, for whatever reason, they're not driven to do it. They think that somehow there's a financial hurdle, which has all but disappeared. That's pretty much gone at this point. And so it's very rare. So, when I meet a student who's like really motivated, I'm like, I love it. It's so cool.
I hope they keep that spark, man.
Yeah. And whether it's in movies or video games or whatever, like, but some students do have that spark and they keep going. And you can tell. It's the kind of student that was like, you see them in the lab and they're like, oh, I completed this game already. Oh, I'm working on the next thing now.
Yeah.
You're going to be okay. You're going to be all right.
Well, that's the key, is that I think what happens with people is they get this idea and this concept in their mind, which is, okay, I've got this grandiose idea. And then they start talking to too many people about it. That could be a killer of dreams right then and there, because people start second guessing you and what, like, oh, so many people have done a heist movie, or yeah, that's been debated, ad nauseum, blah, blah, blah. I don't care what anybody thinks anymore. At 50 years old, when it comes to like my music, if I want to do 5 meditation albums this year, I'm just freaking doing it because I don't care. Like that's something I want to explore, and that's a path I'm going to go down, and that's the end of it. So I just choose things I want to do. And I also choose things that I know my end users and my music fans are going to end up using too. And I kind of mash those two things together, and I produce enough content and enough music that people resonate with. And then some of the stuff they don't, I dig it. So, I mean, I got to like it first, right?
I cannot tell you how many times growing up, late teens, your early 20s, where older people told me that, like, you can't do that. I talked about making feature-length films and shooting on video. Oh, you can't do that. We're shooting on 16mm film. You don't know what you're doing. You can't do it that way.
Those are my favorite comments.
And then,
because that just means you're going down a, like, double-digit percentage, high, more than 50%, guaranteed, that people's dreams are just crushed because they listened to the wrong person. You know?
Yeah, you will get that. People who decided that something was too hard, or that they didn't want to try. Maybe their life was too hard, legitimately. But you'll get that a lot. And it wasn't a money thing, because I never had any money growing up, you know? So it was like, so you will get that. But it's funny, in this interview I heard with Robert Rodriguez, he had said something very similar, that people would always tell him stuff like that. And the experts will come in and they'll make fun of this, they'll make fun of that. They'll say, you can't do it this way, you can't do it that way. But he's a guy who already did, you know, he already did it. And
You try to tell me I can't do something that I've done already.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
but what he said was that you just have to start. If you don't know how to do something, you have to just start trying to do it, and you will become an expert in the doing. The pre-learning and all that stuff, like, you can do some of that, some preparation, but it's better to just start creating. It's like when you know, we worked on Everything Moves Alone. I had to learn to change out film and meter film. We had to learn
God, you had to like switch out film in a field in a way that you wouldn't expose the film and ruin the footage again.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And yeah, Matt Ford talks about that. Although it was mostly Phil and myself and Mike changing out the film reels.
Yeah.
And
The
putting
lead
them
actors,
away.
by the way.
What was that?
The lead actors of the film, by the way.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, multitasking.
And you can't ever monitor the stuff. And this is thing, like, we shot all of Everything Moves Alone 16 millimeter. We didn't see what anything looked like. So we had to wait to get the footage back. And actually, a lot of it was really dark. And we asked the lab, you know, like, can you light this reel and this reel? Can you lighten these up? And they actually did. So that's how we got a usable film, because they kind of
amazing.
They took pity on us. But it's amazing because you see how much film can be manipulated. Unlike video, you know, video back in the day, you get very hard to adjust things on a significant level. Film, actual celluloid, you can push things and really, you can make things a lot brighter. You'll see grain, but at least it's possible, you know.
Well, this is all the more reason why in the digital realm and what we do today with the Blackmagic camera, right, is what, capturing things at 4K and ProRes, like, that's literally like, get as much information as you can, you know, with everything that we're capturing, because then you can in essence emulate that push, right? You can do a lot of stuff with it as long as you have the information. If you don't have the information, it's tough.
Yeah, that's a reason to use a cinema camera rather than just some random DSLR, because you can record, like the Blackmagic 4K Pocket, the one I have. I don't know why they call it that. It's quite big. You can record flat, and you record in Apple ProRes. I use Apple 4K Apple ProRes LT because otherwise the file sizes are absurd. But it shoots very, like, if you see it, everything looks gray.
Okay.
But the color information is all there. So in post, you can really push things into different, you know, have things have different looks. So it's, you know, it's a really powerful tool.
Yeah, we mentioned the 300 gig export, ProRes export. Ultimately, it gets compressed to a fraction of that. But
yeah. So the film is 80 something minutes, maybe 83 minutes, so close to 90 minutes. And a lot of the documentary you probably want to have under 90. Like 90 is kind of long for a doc. But so, you know, it's a combination. It's like, you know, VHS footage, digital footage, standard definition, high definition, 4K. It's almost anything you can think of. These things were captured from VCRs or little, you know, high 8 tapes and stuff like that. And so if you can imagine wanting to make a contemporary feature, you want to start off with a 4K timeline. But, you know, as you narrated, VHS was only like, I think 3:240, which, like, if you look at our screen, that's like a postage stamp. That's like that in this frame.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so
it was expanded to a regular size television, right? So,
yeah. So how do you do that? One of the things, yeah, you can drag it out to make the square bigger. If you did a full screen, it would look like abstract painting. It'd look like mush. So you just have to look at what you have and test and like, okay, you get it to a square this big. And then one of the things you see more often, you don't want to just have black around the whole thing because, it's, it feels incomplete.
right,
So what you do is you copy that, you paste it, you put it behind, you scale that up so it fills the frame, then you blur it. So then it's the square with the blurry action, same thing happening behind it. So a lot of it's that way. And then I used additive fill in Photoshop to actually extend the frame. But that has to be a locked off shot,
Right. It's going to be, if it's in your standard format for widescreen, then it's going to make some guesses, right, as to what is beyond there. But I mean, a lot of those shots ended up being really good. It was
well, it's a lot of testing. You can't use it all. You can maybe you do 2 hours of work, you get one usable extended thing. And that's how it is with some of the AI. I don't call that AI. I'll call that Photoshop. But but
no, you're not taking nothing and then creating a scene. That would be AI. Right.
Yeah.
This actually, you had footage and you needed to adjust it for the frame, but you didn't want to suffer the resolution. So the answer was
it's extending. Yeah. But so it's interesting. Some of the techniques, I had to use in video dreams. And then also too, if you can imagine, it's I like to call it my midlife crisis movie. It's and I'd say it chronicles the first half of specifically my film career, and not really all of it, but just most of it. And what's interesting is that the film is told through different movies that we made, and the sort of valleys and peaks come through in that way. But you have to imagine when I built this thing out, I didn't know if it would function as a narrative.
Right.
Because is it just going to seem like a laundry list of movies that's not watchable, or like, so
let's talk about that a little bit. How, what the process is with that, because this happens with every movie we do together. You'll start formulating an idea based on conversations we're having like these and talking about the next project or whatever. The project starts to coalesce into something that's tangible and meaningful to both of us. And then we start thinking about what's the story we want to tell with this. It's like, all right, well, I know I like this. I captured this interview and I've got about 5 or 7 minutes on screen with this. So why don't I get this cleaned up and let's take a look at this, right? And so you'll export something and I'll be like, yeah, I like that. I like that feeling. I like the vibe of that. And then throw some narration over the top of it and like intro it in and then out to something else that hasn't been done yet. And then suddenly it's like there's an anchor point and it's like, okay, this has got some reality. It's like fixed in reality. And now it's real. There's something real and tangible we can tether to and start building off of that, either before it, afterwards, whatever. And then suddenly it just starts to flow. I mean, obviously it's a testament to your 30 plus years of editing and understanding how to tell a story, dude. But like it just kind of starts to become a thing by just, like you said, just getting in there and doing the thing.
Yeah.
Stop overthinking it.
When I was making this, I don't like, part of it was like extreme limitations. I'm a filmmaker. I have to make movies. It's part of the way I feel normal. So I have to do it. And so like, given my constraints, like family, work, all these other things, how can I do it? I do not have the time to go out and shoot a bunch of stuff. So I was like, well, what do I have? And I was like, I've got all this archive footage. I got my old footage, And so I started just playing around, capturing some VHS stuff, found some raw VHS stuff, like First Generation. I found a raw tape of this movie we did called Kick the Corpse, which you play the main villain, Joshua Nuts. And I captured that, and then I narrated, but I was just trying to think back and trying to be as honest as possible, and made these little montages with music. Then I made a few of those, but then you're like, okay, if I'm going to be doing this, I have to have a setup here. Let me create a setup section. So I'll do that. And then I'm like, I kind of have to explain why this footage is all over the place. Like,
Right,
let me give a
right.
little technical demo section, you know? And then I got to a certain point. It wasn't called Video Dreams for the longest time. I think I called it Low Budget initially. And then at a certain point, when I got past the Blockbuster video part, I was like, okay, I got to add a beginning to set up the Blockbuster thing, you know? So you start building from there. A lot of it's like, well, if I'm going to do this, I have to do this. Or in some cases, I already did this, so I got to, it's like backfilling, you know?
Right. Well, it's funny, and that is the interesting thing that differentiates a documentary from narrative, in the sense that every time you make a move or an adjustment, it changes the entire story.
Yeah.
Kind of shifts, right?
And I can tell you that little voice in the back of my head that says, like, well, if you're going to do this, you better fucking go back and do this. If you're going to do that, you better fucking explain it. The next sentence in that phrase is, or else someone's going to rip you a new ass when they go to review it. You're going to get punished if you don't fucking fix it.
Right. Right.
And that's not being subservient to film critics, but it's the sort of audience advocate. It's someone who is burnt so many times, or their work has been critiqued so much, that you gain some kind of instinct. And the instinct is like, you better fucking fix it. You better go back. The average person who, let's say, didn't have that much experience, or if you're younger, sometimes you're like, no, it's great. It's perfect the way it is. I don't want to change it. That's a young thing to think.
Yeah. Yeah.
But for me, it's like, no. And this is what I realized. Like, there are people, like, for you, maybe it's like Hans Zimmer, but for me, it's something like someone like Robert Rodriguez. Whatever that guy says, he was brilliant right away. He had an old, crappy, like World War II 16mm camera, and he made Bedhead with that, and he did it. I forget how he cut it, but he mostly shot in camera, and then I forgot he might have had it transferred and then edited it on. I don't think he did it with 2 VCRs, but really primitive editing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like, he was doing stuff like reversing shots and shooting upside down, like, because he knew he could switch it in post and stuff like that. And that guy will never admit it, but incredible visual genius, and kept learning and learning and learning, getting better, and just, so. But
well, that's like, the necessity is the, like, mother of skill, right? Like, it's literally like you jump into something and things go wrong, and you've got a fork in the road, and you can take two paths. You can take the path of defeat, or you can take the path of, right, how do I pivot in this situation, still make the thing I want to make, but a compromise I can live with, right? And
yeah.
I mean, a perfect example in Video Dreams is the situation in Land of College Prophets, right? Literally didn't have a certain person because of a, no fault of theirs, a life event. But I mean, all these filming, even when we were doing full narration, narratives, it was 2 weekends and a week in between, typically,
Yeah.
That's
and
pretty much all we had.
Yeah, that was pretty much it. Like, the most extravagant was 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But we did some movies in 9 days. Mark of the Beast, I think that was a sweet spot. It was 10 days and then one makeup weekend, like a month later, when you're
right. Oh, pickup.
You figure
pickups.
out, like,
yeah.
One pickup day when you realize, what can I shoot in a day to fix the whole film? But with Land of College Prophets, which is feature length film, one of the early digital video era films, 2005. People liked it at the time. It's, but it was, what was I going to say about it? Oh, the script, I was still learning how to write. And so the script was kind of a mess. We got the film, it had all this narration. I was obsessed with like shot. It's so funny because this was like a trashy B movie with backyard superheroes. But I loved things like Shawshank Redemption, which had all this narration in it. So I loved like flowery narration. But when we got back, I started cutting this thing with Mike Aransky, and we're like, this doesn't make any sense. And so we're like, well, we got the narration. So then the narration became a tool to have the film make sense.
Let's clarify this.
Yeah. So, but that's the thing is you can usually make things work, you can almost always find a way to make things work.
Yeah. The weird thing about that is you struggle to make something comprehensible to the audience, to get so good that you make something barely comprehensible because of the art associated with what you're creating.
Yeah.
It's this weird arc where, like, I mean, David Lynch, you know what I mean? There's some of his movies, like, I have to go look at, like, Reddit threads to understand, like, at what point did things shift in Mulholland Drive? Because I don't understand what the hell happened. Like, what is happening here? And, like, there's this whole, like, oh, well, at, beginning act 3, this happened, blah, blah, and it's actually a dream sequence. And I'm like, what? And it's like, well, yeah, that's super professional. That's super interesting and artistic. But, like, you have to go through the arc first, typically. Some people just jump into that and are just...
It's weird.
You know what I mean?
People like David Lynch, he's one in particular, that guy was like a real artist, and he could make these things like there's almost no one like him, because he was making art first, but then it was also like a functional movie,
Right. Well, even the series, like the Twin Peaks series and stuff, like it was on the edge of being normal, and then there would be these weird things slipped in that just make you, it pulls you out of like normalcy.
Yeah.
And creates this surreal world that you're like, are these people real? Like, do people really behave this way?
Yeah.
Like what is and just how they all interact? Like, the writing was just amazing to me,
I've been thinking about this a lot, and like this concept of some artists, a lot of artists don't like explaining their work. Like if you talk to the Coen brothers in interviews, they'll be like, can you explain this and that? And the Coen brothers like, I don't want to explain it. We worked very hard to have some level of interpretation that the audience can have. And we like that space because we think it's art. David Lynch was the same way. He's like, you're asking me to let's say collapse these mysteries into some hard reality. It's like that's the opposite of art. Like, that's not what I do.
It's like going to a 5-star restaurant and devolving this delicious chicken dish into a fried chicken sandwich from freaking Wendy's. You know what I mean? Like, why would we do that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't want to package it. And I just remember being in high school, and they always wanted explanations. You could never write, if it was English, you could never write poetic. The notes would always be like, what the fuck are you talking about? Not literally. You could never write mysteriously. You could never, I think, that's part of the reason I think writing used to really bum me out, even in college.
I don't think my composition teacher, Mrs. Sullivan, ever made that comment on my paper.
The fuck does that mean?
What are you talking about?
It's that guy, Putterman, wrote.
Oh, you had him? Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
It's weird because, like, why would you write that unless you're in a conversation with me?
Right.
Right needs explanation.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Could use an explanation. Think about blah, blah, blah.
Expand.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
No.
We're not in a direct conversation. It's so funny.
No, he was great. I'm just, but No, yeah, it's interesting the concept of art, and film has always been like this compromised medium, part commerce, part art, and then the audience is so important, you know. And you get the feeling that some of the studio projects today, some of the people working in them have never had, like, they're very thin-skinned about their work, and there's all this hedging language in the writing, overly self-aware,
Mm-hmm.
lack of confidence in the writing, and then um it and they don't care about the audience, you know.
Very limited risk taking. Very limited risk taking.
But we absolutely had to care about the audience.
Yeah. That's the only thing we were talking to, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's that combination of trying to communicate your ideas, but in a way that's the most palatable to the audience. You know, you go, okay, I think this would be really cool. Hopefully this is really cool for the audience, though. If it's not really cool for the audience, then it's less cool for me. I want them to like it, you know?
Right. And not because I want to be liked, but because I want whatever art that I'm creating to be relatable enough that people resonate with it. They don't have to fully get it. In fact, there's music that I create that people don't always get. I dig making it. And, you know, it's kind of like you create the thing and then your tribe finds you. That's just kind of how things happen, you know?
You have some tracks that are just so weird. Like, the beginnings are so weird. And I remember taking, like, just one weird sound cue. I'm like, what the hell is that? It sounds like a bird or a harmonica or something. It's wow, 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 wow. And
I know exactly what song. It was off of one of the Glitch albums.
And I was like, I used it to put in front of there's all these big dates in the film, 1993, 1994. So you always want to refresh your audience. So having, like, I'm like, that's the weirdest fucking sound cue. I put it underneath, you know, and it's like, I'm like, oh, that's perfect.
Yeah.
You know.
But that's just it. Like, I could just piss out the same thing over and over and over again that everybody else is doing. Or I have these genres that I dip into time and time again that are I literally put them in place, Tom, for the freedom to express whatever the hell comes out of me. And it's like, there's no explanation. There's no apology. It's like, this one's freaking weird. Don't know if anybody's going to resonate with it or use it, but here you go. And invariably it's the weird, obscure stuff that people are like, yeah, I like this. And I'm like, I didn't, but it was finished and I wanted to make sure if somebody did like it, they could use it. Glad you do. Like, because as a musician, when you perform in a way and you execute something musically in a way that you're just like, oh man, the transition and the key signature change and this, and just the way the instrumentation is just syncopated. Like, I just love it. I just love how this came out. I love how it grooves. I love the melody and everything else. And sometimes it's not that it doesn't take off or it doesn't get liked. It just doesn't hit the ground running like you expected it to. And that's okay. I mean, some people sit on, you know, produce tunes rather, and they're out there for years before somebody grabs it and they're like, oh, and they put it in the right video and the right content online, and suddenly everybody is excited about it because they're like, wow, I saw it in this video and now I can't think of it any other way than that it's cool because of what it was juxtaposed against, right? And, you know, that's the dream as a musician, is that you have people using your stuff as much as possible, which is why I do it royalty-free / Creative Commons, because that's what I'm trying to find. I'm trying to find a path to that where somebody's visual art is amazing and they take a piece of music that they resonated with and the both of them together are lifted up, you know? And that to me is like why I sit here and pine away and wonder if I'm writing the same song over and over again. Sometimes it feels that way.
It's
You know?
it's hard to know if you're spinning your gears or I feel the same way. Like with this doc, I'm like, am I repeating myself?
But
It's
there's an underlying. I mean, can we talk a little bit about the underlying theme?
yeah, and
Is
yeah.
it? Are we gonna like spoiler alert? Blah blah blah.
No, I don't think. Yeah.
But there's an underlying theme across this whole thing that even if you're not an aspiring filmmaker or content creator or anything of that nature, you can you right out of the gate within the first 5 to 10 minutes. I mean, of course I'm biased, but I think anybody that has an objective appreciation for movies like this and documentaries like this is going to see and feel the feelings of somebody that has a dream, there's a spark, and they're starting to work towards it, and you get pushed down a couple of times, or you get denied a certain rite of passage or whatever, and then the perseverance of saying, okay, I'm going to pivot again. Okay, I'm going to pivot again. And then I'm going to change my definition as to what's success, because I went out to LA. This is, I feel it here. It's not going to do it for me. It's going to kill me. This isn't going to be what's going to work for me. This isn't who I am. But like that realization, that self-awareness is so freaking important as an artist, because you can get so easily caught up in somebody else's definition of who you are. That's a big one. That's a big one.
Yeah, definitely that's a lesson that, I mean, I've maybe only learned in the past few years. But like,
it takes a while, dude.
But like here's the thing. Like, so growing up, those filmmakers like Robert Rodriguez, Kevin Smith, Quentin Tarantino, I'd say those three, and then for some reason, although Matt Damon and Ben Affleck made, it was a big studio film. So there was a big Miramax studio film, Good Will Hunting. So
yeah. But
they
I forget, either one of them have parents that were in the industry.
Well, I mean, they went to, what was it? They went to Matt Damon, I think, went to Harvard. So
yeah, and he was doing a movie about being around Harvard.
Yeah,
right? I mean, that was in essence.
Yeah. So but those guys worked their ass off. I can't say they probably started on third base, but they still did amazing, incredible careers, both of them.
Yeah. And there's a lot of things that came together in that movie too, like having Robin Williams.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say. All those guys had fame immediately. As someone I'm almost 50. You're 50.
I am.
I'm still holding on to my. I'm just in my 40s at 48.
Yeah.
Sorry. Anyway.
It's all right. It's all right. Just a number, dude.
But no, like those guys had fame almost immediately, because Robert Rodriguez even talks about it. He did Bedhead, then he did El Mariachi. That thing, I think Columbia picked that up, became this huge thing. He had overnight superstardom, because back then the directors were like stars. Kevin Smith made his film, God bless him. Clerks is like, I still love Clerks.
Me too.
I think it's
me too.
More than anything, it's just charming. It's that Gen X charming, which is super harsh.
God, and we can totally relate to it. We were freaking worked a video store.
We were working in the video store, luckily. But even then, like his portrayal of a video store worker and a convenience store clerk. When I got to work in a video store, I felt so grateful, because we had all worked in restaurant and fast food and all that stuff. I know for you, Cruise and Cuisine and all this stuff, and Pagliacci's, right? Or
yeah.
And I was
bussing tables and then cooking pizza and making pasta from scratch and stuff, like.
And for me, it was like Wendy's and D'Angelo's, all these shitty jobs where you're covered in grease from the grill. So when we got to work in the video store, like for me, it was so much better. And even in Clerks, that was like, for them, that was bottom. But for me, that was even still a step up,
Yeah.
So, but
wait, you get to sit around and advise people on what to watch next and watch movies during the whole thing. I mean, occasionally I screwed up and I put something on at a time of day and there was like an F-bomb or something like
Yeah,
that.
like,
I remember
oops.
a classic example. Your brother comes into the Terryville store, and I'm watching As Good as It Gets.
Jesus. Yeah.
The female who's the female
Helen
lead
Hunt.
in that?
Yeah.
Yeah, she drops an F-bomb, and like there's kids in the store, and your brother's just like, dude, you can't. I'm like, I had no, like, I forgot there's like 3 in this movie.
Yeah, it does.
Like,
It's
God
weird
damn it.
because like it's such a polished studio film, almost like rom-commy, but you forget it's just like there's they say horrible shit throughout the whole movie. It's
Yeah.
which is partly why it's
PG too, and somehow they got away with 3 of them. They had 3 F-bombs.
yeah, that's crazy. But no, like but Kevin Smith had he had success by relative terms, 2 middle-aged men right away.
Yeah.
Within a couple years.
Yeah.
No, not that many people like Clerks. I think it was Sundance. I think it was a guy at Miramax pushed it into Sundance.
Okay.
And then people liked it in Sundance, and boom, Kevin Smith has a career. That's not negating all the incredible amount of work those film directors put into it.
Sure. And in post to clean up the project that he had in the first place.
Kevin Smith was like we talked about it. They dumped $250,000 into defucking Clerks so that it was watchable. Whereas Rodriguez's cut was still pretty good. Yeah.
He did from next was killer either, but he gained enough clout from that first movie for people to give him the benefit of the doubt. Like he did like Jiggly, right? Did he do that one? Did he do like or is that somebody else?
Mallrats didn't do so good, but it did good on video. He did Chasing Amy. That was super cheap, so it did do well. And he did Dogma. Dogma actually did well he protested his own movie. He's got some
so funny.
I think his best talent is producing. I actually don't think it's directing or definitely not writing. I think it's producing.
Aren't they doing a sequel to that? I think that's a mistake.
Yeah, I don't think it's a good idea. But props to Kevin Smith. Love you, buddy.
Yeah, for sure.
He's had an incredible career, 10 times the career I have, But another
comparison is the stealer of joy, dude. Don't do that.
Yeah, I don't know. I did that.
It's not.
What I was going to say is Tarantino's another one where, again, like in this Rodriguez interview I listened to, he remembers because Robert Rodriguez took a lot of video back in the day. And so when Tarantino finished Pulp Fiction, which was not his first film, he had done another film with his buddy, which is
Do you know what it was called?
What was that?
Do you remember what it was called?
I forget the name of it. It did come out on video, but like after Pulp Fiction came out.
Okay.
Because Reservoir Dogs came out, people liked that one. A lot of this stuff happened retroactively. When Pulp Fiction came out and became a success, more people saw Reservoir Dogs. People think of Reservoir Dogs as a huge, like a solid hit right away. And I think it was somewhat, but people retroactively were like, oh, Pulp Fiction, watch Reservoir Dogs.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost on the same level now, but that's not how it was back then.
Right.
But yeah, the first feature he did, he was kind of ashamed of. So when he did Reservoir Dogs and then Pulp Fiction, when he did Pulp Fiction, Rodriguez, I think, had it videotaped, but he had a conversation with Tarantino about Pulp Fiction when they finished the cut of it. They screened it to a bunch of studio people, and Quentin Tarantino himself, who's actually known for incredible self-confidence and very boisterous about his own abilities. At least that's the facade we see. He said to Robert, Rodriguez goes, how's Pulp Fiction? He goes, it's not the one. It didn't come out that good. Like, what do you mean? It's not. He's like, it's like a Quentin Tarantino movie. It's kind of like a Quentin Tarantino movie, a movie that I would make with my, but it's not like it's not a breakout. It's not going to be anything.
This is before it came out, or this is in retrospective?
Before it came out, yeah. Before it came out. Comes out, explodes. Everyone loves it. Everyone's interested. Travolta. What's Travolta doing? I thought he was doing these stupid talking baby movies. What's he doing here? Because people still like him, Bruce Willis. That's pretty cool.
And he was in this weird period, too, Travolta, where I know in that area, like before the Look Who's Talking, there's a little bit of an error there where he's a little blacklisted for a while, and I forget what happened in Hollywood, but like he was having an issue
with Travolta.
and,
Yeah, I don't remember. I just think, who knows? But he was out of favor, certainly.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I think his movies had stopped making money so much. I think they did. I could be wrong about that.
It's weird. Like Saturday Night Fever was like at the tail end of the disco era, you know?
Yeah.
Like I had recently learned that like when it came out, that was like fading away.
Yeah, it was
and it was turning into like the 80s and the 80s tunes, you know? But which is really bizarre.
So Tarantino again he was kind of an overnight success. Like it probably took him a few extra years, but you know, he's still got there relatively young. And so that Gen X filmmaker, if you looked on the stage, you saw these young people, you saw these early 20s or early to mid 20s people who had got there. You start thinking, well, I can do that, you know? And so, but we were already making movies. We were so fascinated. We're making them. And then you see these people and you go, wait, maybe we can make this as a career. And then the video store came into play. And so the video store became like this. The video store was, for me, represented something for the everyman and an attainable dream, because we had worked in those video stores and we'd rented some pretty crummy low budget stuff. And we're like, we can do this. I bet we can do this. If we can do this, then we can get on the shelf. Maybe we can make a living, you know? So it was a wonderful dream. The reality of the execution of it is, I mean, it's debatable. If we started 5 years earlier, it probably would have been much easier, you know?
Maybe you would have been like 13.
Yeah, no, I know. I mean, it is what it is, you know? By the time College Profits got on Hollywood Video and Netflix and all that stuff. And
they were starting to shutter doors, you know?
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. You know, that's why we
the company went bankrupt.
Yeah.
So we never paid anything. London Betty, Maverick was in tight with Blockbuster. We got there. It was like a dream come true. But because they were so hooked in with Blockbuster, when Blockbuster went belly up, there was nothing. You know, there was so it never recouped. So
yeah. Oh, but here's the thing. This is a good point to make at this stage. Redefining the dream is super important at that stage, because that was one of the dreams. Our movie is sitting on a shelf at Blockbuster Video.
Yeah.
And that happened multiple times.
And it's a complicated dream, because we always knew the mom and pop video stores were more important and all that stuff. But Blockbuster was a large enough chain where that could signify success. Because at the height of Blockbuster, they were giving out like Bruce Willis was winning these like Blockbuster awards. You know what I mean? Like,
right. There was an actual freaking award ceremony from the corporation.
Yeah. So it was,
who was in with the studios anyways, you know?
Yeah. So it was, you know, that was a good hope. And the films we were doing were so small that theatrical really didn't make sense. Like at the time they were still playing film prints. If you're talking mid to late 90s, they're playing, you know, it's all film prints they're doing, except for I think maybe Phantom Menace started late 90s doing digital projection something. But like, so
God, I forgot about that.
The films that we were doing, even our 16 millimeter film, the master was on a digital tape, or it wasn't even digital, it was Beta SP, because that was a broadcast tape, believe it or not.
Okay.
That was like a news standard. So our film was not going to play, like we could play in a few theaters that had the capability of projecting video, but you're not gonna take a Beta SP tape around the country to screen your movie. You know, it's not gonna happen.
No, that's like an art house theater will probably have decks for that at the time.
Yeah, right.
Like there was one in Hartford. I always forget the name of it, but that's where we had a film festival a couple times back in
Real Artways.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. That's it. Yeah, I don't know why I was drawing a blank on it. It's been a while.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
But no, it definitely is interesting that the environment. Now I'm Now I'm thinking, I'm double questioning my choices now. I'm like, Video Dream. Should I have mentioned the environment of Blockbuster? I basically made the case that it was the end all goal because of
Yeah.
the scale of it. But it is like a interesting. I'm like, oh yeah, they had their own award show. They had their own. It's like
Yeah. Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
No, what's funny is that we've found a path. You could start off with these, caviar dreams or whatever from the early era when we were in our 20s. That, oh yeah, we're gonna be like just like Ben Affleck and Matt Damon and become millionaires and do this, blah blah blah. You still have a story to tell. We're still producing art. It's still resonating with people, and it's still winning award after award. I mean, if our IMDb pages they speak volumes to what the festival circuit says about the last several movies we put out. So,
well, look, I'm very proud of what we accomplished. We absolutely have some respect in the independent film world. VHS Massacre, it was a hit. It even pushed into the mainstream very much. I mean, being on NBC Universal and, 30 awards collectively,
it's insane.
It's streamed everywhere short of Netflix, but Netflix isn't that cool. But that's another thing too, is that, we built our own way up. We didn't get plucked from obscurity and pushed up to the studio projects. We stayed independent filmmakers, but we also made the stuff we wanted to make.
Right. I was just going to say that's a key component of it. That plucking and being brought to somewhere else could have very easily compromised everything about what we were doing potentially, and maybe would have pushed back and it would have fizzled out.
Yeah, and I'm very proud of the documentaries. They're respected by fans, somewhat in academia, somewhat by historians. I mean, the first one's a little ridiculous, but
it's fun though. We didn't want it to be so serious that all it is technicality, technical jargon, like about the industry, the business, and everything else. You throw in the VHS scavenger hunt into it and be a little plucky about things, and throw a little levity into things, and that's probably part of what drew people to it overall, and for it to be as successful as it was, because you just kind of make it a little playful, but you also get serious sometimes. And I think that's an important wax and wane.
Yeah, that's production value. If you can pull off comedy in an effective way, great. That helps hook the audience in, So I always gravitate towards that anyway. What's interesting, what's funny. But the other thing that happened in the last 10 years, no one likes celebrities anymore. Like, they're not really that cool. Like, Hollywood is not where the cool people were. So it's weird, because being excluded from all that is actually advantageous now, because the counterculture is this YouTube counterculture, independent filmmaking counterculture.
Yeah. Or just content creators. Yeah. Some people influencers that literally have a couple million followers and build content that is on par or rivals some of the stuff that comes out of the studio system.
People watch,
it's amazing.
People watch their favorite YouTuber. First of all, your favorite YouTuber gets 10 times more views than Jimmy Kimmel. They get their content's watched more than Hollywood films,
Yeah. And Mr. Beast, for example, within the first 24 hours, 7-10 million views of a new video. Easily.
Yeah.
Within the first 24 hours of it being online. A Nielsen rating of that level of watching is unheard of. Like, for a sitcom or something, forget it. That doesn't happen. What does that happen with?
Yeah. So, it's. No, I'm like, I think we're doing a good job, but so it's been a strange trip, but I think over the past 5 years, it's really strange. I'm sure you have the same thing with your music. Do you talk about numbers, or is that some of the
maybe not the income, but as far as the streaming and stuff is concerned?
As someone who's on the road to 1,000 songs, a conservative estimate, how many people a month listen to your music because it's either downloaded, listened to, or it's in a YouTube video or a video game?
It'd have to be hundreds of thousands
In a month?
if not like 1 million plus, because just from a couple of the content creators alone that I know that use some of the tracks that I have, they have very big following, big subscriber base on YouTube, and the videos that the music is in has hundreds of thousands of views. So whether somebody's coming in and only checking out a little bit of it or whatever, if my music happens to be towards the beginning of it, which in this particular content creator I'm thinking of, it often is, it's a cue and it's something that happens in the beginning, then people are hearing it all the time. And it's just one of these things that just is just becoming part of your sonic narrative of, online consumption of content.
But it's definitely millions a year.
Well, for sure. I would say I could confidently estimate that just from the platforms that people download the music from. That literally there's millions of listens just to decide which one to take and put into their content. So yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, and that's an interesting path, that you took as well. Is that, like, realistically, more people listen to you than a lot of pop musicians, which have PR behind them and have image consultants and all this other stuff. But by the nature of YouTube, people are downloading your video. This video gets 10 million views. They don't always know it's you. Similar to filmmaking,
right.
They don't always know who the director is. But you got millions of people listening to you. But it's not. What I like about it is it's done in this sort of like underground, independent way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, taking that paywall away, I mean, that ask where I'm like, I got this thing, but you want to give me $20? You know what I mean? It's like people are like, no, I'm not gonna. No, I can. But if you want me to use it, if I can use it, I'll give you attribution. I'll let people know who you are. And then suddenly you have people regularly listening to your tracks on whatever their favorite streaming site is, and then also using it in their content. I get 1 or 2 people using my orchestration stuff and D&D campaigns, and suddenly there's a dozen or so that are using it. And my ambition and my goal is, 2 to 5 years from now, that's hundreds, if not thousands, of people using my stuff for that, and then I'm creating music specific. Like, clearly that music is resonating with that community, so I'm going to make more of it,
Mm-hmm.
And, I've got people like Kelly Clark from Dork Tales that uses it pretty regularly. And I did I specifically went into the whole spaghetti Western like path because of one of the sub games he was making, just to play around with it. And I'm like, ooh, this is fun. Like, I never did this. This is great. And then it ended up resonating with other people, and I'm hearing it on other content that was never my intention. That's another thing too, is like, I'll write things thinking like, this will be perfect for you to use in this. And then I go watch a video and I'm like, not a million years did I think that somebody was going to use it in that capacity and in that narrative. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's really, really wild.
Well, yeah, I was working on a project. I can't talk too much about it. It's fun though. But you had done an album with what is it, Middle Eastern theme?
Yeah. Dunescapes.
And
yeah,
there's one track, and it's a beautiful track, and there's a woman chanting, and I was like, I want to make this scary. So I think I slowed it down to 70%. And it's this woman, she's like, ah, and I slowed down. It's like, bah.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah. It just changed the gender of the singer, which is brilliant.
Yeah. It just sounds way creepier.
I remember back in the day, you would tentatively show me something where you made an adjustment like that, or you cut up a song or something, and you're always concerned that I was going to get like, I was going to have an issue or get weird about it. And I'm like, no, man. In fact, I'm actually flattered that it inspired you to twist it around a little differently and use it in a different way than I had originally intended it. And like, that's great. You heard something that I didn't, and you're able to manifest it into the sonic narrative that you need in your piece, And I'm just like, that's great. I love it when people do that.
I think it's just from growing up with so much of that stuff, like just old video gear and audio gear, and playing around with slowing down sound, like old cassette players and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Even old vinyl, right? You could play things slow. And then once getting onto computers and like things like Premiere and Final Cut Pro or Cakewalk even, and being able to slow stuff down, reverse them, and the ease of it and how cool it is. So I just remember like slowing stuff down. Like, this is such a treat. And if you're hearing a track with like bells, stuff like that, I immediately think, those bells will become gongs, or
if I slow it down,
or large bells. Yeah.
Right.
Like church bells.
Yeah.
If I slow it down. So when I'm listening to stuff, you're thinking of it on a different level. Like, oh, I know this can turn into this, you know? So it's like, it's a fun, creative thing. So when I'm hearing a track, I'm like, oh, what's that? That woman's voice? Oh, I'm going to slow it. That'll be creepy. It'll be good.
Well, Eric Michael Schrader, you guys must be kindred spirits in the editing realm, because not only did he do the similar things with my pieces, but he did it to like 80-something tracks. Like, he put like 80-something tracks of mine in Shoot the Guns too.
Wow.
And some of the times when he put some of those pieces in there, he layered like 2, sometimes even 3, and did these weird transitions and stuff with it. And he's like, dude, I hope you're cool. Like he had this extensive conversation with me about it. He's like, I hope you're cool. I'm like, dude, are you kidding me? I'm like, that's fantastic. I love what you're doing with all that stuff. It's awesome, you know? And I just enjoyed, I enjoyed watching the movie for what it was, but I also enjoyed it sonically, because I'm like, what's he going to do next? Like, how's he going to layer some of the tracks I did next? And how's he going to use it as a cue? And it's interesting, the choices he made versus the choices you make or anybody else. Just every time I see it, I get a charge out of it, because I'm like, all right, like this has different legs for different people, and I enjoy the fact that people find a path to that, you know?
Yeah, no, it's great, man. That's why it's such a treat. Like an editor, editors will, like, they revel in it. They'll see 800 tunes, see royalty free. Oh my God. Do you know what that means? I can use all this stuff. I can play with it. It's like, it's not raw material. That's crude to say, but it's like Colby beef or something. Okay, how can I cook this? You know what I mean? I'm going to prep this, you know?
Well, Eric was telling me that's, in a lot of ways, that was how he catalyzed building a scene. He was sampling the different tunes, and he'd hear one, and he's like, oh, I can build tension with this thing. So he's like, this is going to be for this part, and I'm going to build the scene around that music, because I want it to have this, I want it to have this vibe. I want it to have this feeling. And I'm like,
yeah,
oh, that's really interesting. I don't think anybody's ever shared that with me, that's how they build the vision. They build it out visually after they find the piece, as opposed to adding the music to it after the fact, when you already have like a semi-picture lock of that scene.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It can be a combo of that stuff. Like, yeah, you can, I do that quite often. I'm like, I love the song, and I know it emotionally works with the project. So I'm gonna bring it in. Okay, I know I want the graphic to hit this crescendo of the song. Graphic's gonna hit when this happens. But then you kind of have to reverse behind it, build up the cut so that it works here. Another way is you lay in the thing. Okay, it works. Now I'm gonna recut so that it hits on more of the beats in the existing track. Very rarely do I lay in music and not adjust the cut. I'll put it that way.
Okay.
The music almost either the music drives the cutting, or it's cut, the music's laid in, and then the cut's adjusted for the music. But sometimes I have to slow down the music or cut it, extend the music out. You know, it's a combination. It's a marriage.
Yeah. So one of the, like you were talking about volume earlier, I wanted to revisit that for a second, because recently on DistroKid, I've got some heat with one particular track, and it's from The Future is Digital. And it was like the Digito, the future is digito. And it was an album I released in December, right? And I'm just now getting Instagram, Facebook feedback on some of these tracks. And this one's called like Time is of the Essence, right? And pretty simple bed, not super evolving or anything like that. But January, I think I got like 6.5 million impressions or views on Facebook, Instagram with it. So some creator or creators are digging it. Specifically, a lot of it's coming out of India. So some content creator from India is
hot on this.
Yeah.
6 million.
Yeah. Yeah. And the track is very young, it's still got a lot of legs. So you just don't know. I mean, I'm at a point now, I'm looking at my list, 786 published tunes. So I'm 14 from 800. So that'll be another milestone to celebrate.
800 is a big number, man.
850 probably too. I'll get there well before June 30th because I definitely want to piggyback off of the momentum right now. Right now, I'm lingering in this area of industrial tunes that I've been kind of digging. Some pan drum stuff. Olivia over at Via Frequency was looking for some pan drum music, so I've been trying to play around with this a bit so she can add it to our Reiki channel. And also, like, I haven't touched metal in a while, so I got a couple new software VSTs that have, chugging guitars and like really detuned things, like detuned down to like A, like just ridiculously deep and raw. I'm struggling with good percussive patches that are going to simulate the level of intensity I want to do with it. So I might have to find another tool, but that's going to be fun to play around with. And then, of course, horror. I have to revisit horror sooner than later this year.
See it. You're meat and potatoes.
Oh, God, yeah. And then we did, Kevin and I did this trip to freaking Dinosaur World. And
He's talking about Kevin MacLeod, by the way, the king of royalty-free music.
We went to Dinosaur World and we listened to some music that was pretty dated. So we captured some of it on our phones just to get some sampling and just to get an idea of just get inspired. So I'm actually going to release something called a dinosaur music album, which doesn't make any sense whatsoever other than it's going to be cheeky and fun and hopefully people dig it. So just think Jurassic Park-esque with a little intent. Basically it's epic orchestration stuff.
Yeah, it's a great idea. Apparently, Matt Stone and Trey Parker, they'll do field trips as well. They'll take their writing staff and they'll I don't know if it's animators as well. I'm not sure. They'll take them on these trips just for ideas, just science museum, whatever, and it's just to stoke the imagination. Just add some fresh stuff in there.
Well, part of it too is I think it's been reiterated over the years, but Kevin's always said that, you need to have experiences to expand yourself musically. And if you just sit down and try to write in the same genre over and over again without the experience, you're going to keep writing the same thing. And that's paraphrased. It kind of said it that way, but didn't. But the bulk of that is you need to step away from the creative process to come back to it with a fresh head,
Yeah.
And that's a constant. That's not just in music. That's also in the editing process for you. There's constant times that I know that you're hammering something, you're hammering a final edit of something, like even this video Dreams. And I'm like my gut reaction, and I can't even stop myself half the time. I'm like, put it down, Tom.
Yeah.
You're like, let it sit for a week. Don't touch it.
Well,
I
think I was telling you, so Stephanie, my wife, I made her watch it and she wanted to watch it, but she's very good at pointing stuff out. She found, actually it was 30, I thought it was 40. Well, there's some are multi-part. It was basically 40 grammatical errors, really minor stuff, like certain things didn't have, you'll see a card with a few sentences missing a period. It should be comma here. Okay, but 40 of those things. And when she gave me those, I made the notes, and cut I was showing her, I had just worked on, I had done like a long session. And I'm like, and I'm getting frustrated. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm getting frustrated. It's not you. She's like, I'm just, she's like, I'm just trying to tell you. And I'm like, no, let's keep going. We have to do this. We have to do this. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So it's like very hard to take. You're making a list of things. Thank her profusely after work. I was like, no one could do that. And no one, sometimes you do. You have to literally sit down with someone, and it's got to be, two eyes on it.
One thing at a time, like boom, boom.
But
boom.
I set that down for like a week because I was like, I know I can't do this now. I made all the changes, rendered it out again, and I saw places where I corrected that I made new errors. Like something should have been italicized, and I accidentally added an extra space between a word, 2 spaces.
Right.
Something instead of the word of the number, that the number of just should have been there, 30 instead of the words. Left an extra space, Had to go through again. So I kicked it all out, and like essentially it's a beast that won't really die. You fix as many things that you can. There will always be things to fix. Always. There's a few things in my head now I'm still debating. And the cut I have actually has temporary credits at the end that I put in. They're okay. They just look a little sloppy.
Right.
Paul
But it's
Polino's
good enough for the festival circuit.
Yeah, it's good enough.
If we're deciding it's ready to roll, it's fine.
Yeah,
and we can always
fine.
upload a new version.
And my buddy Paul, when he's going to redo them, when I do that, I'll just drop it in. Like I have the ProRes file, the 300 gig Apple ProRes HQ file, which is just so absurd. Yeah, at a certain point, you just have to, they say films are not finished, they're abandoned. Part of that is, when filmmakers are saying that, they're working with big teams of people that can fix all their shit. When I'm doing something, it's pretty much me. I'll hit you up for some narration. Can you do this narration? He'll give it back. Can you do this other stuff? Yeah.
Can you look at this? Can you look at this cut?
Yeah.
Tell me what you think. Right? Does it make sense? There's like a lot of those. You don't give me a lot. You don't give me a lot of notes. You want my honest feedback without setting me up. You know what I mean? And I appreciate that too, because there's safety in the way that we work together. I'm never going to tell you that something blows and hang up the phone. That would be weird.
I would probably laugh my ass off.
You're like, dude, you're not serious.
That blows. I'd probably laugh my ass off.
It's rare that you listen to a track of mine and you're just like, I'm not digging it. It's very rare.
No, I
think
don't
very rare.
Yeah. No, there's one or two things where it's like, I think one track had some kind of timing issue because I think you were free playing. But I think my note was like, pretty sure you're going to fix this, but I noticed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
he was just making noise in the background. Sorry.
Oh, that's a kitty. No, but it's that kind of thing. Pretty sure you're going to quantize this or whatever, but I noticed.
Right. ...
So it's usually that kind of thing.
Well, I get scared on the other side of it too, because I'll share something with you, like I'll send you something on Discord. I'm like, hey, check out this thing I wrote this morning, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, great, I'm going to drop that in the timeline. I'm like, no, I'm not done.
That happens quite often. You'll send me something, and I'm like...
But part of that is like, you're like, I want my own version that nobody else gets.
I did, yeah. Yeah, you're like, I'm not done. I'm like, perfect. This is the first version of it.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I'm not going to use it if it's flawed. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's a matter of you, maybe you want to add additional stuff or clean up something or push it in a different way. But if it's sound, I can tell if it's sound, I'll just use it,
Yeah, there's some weird thing. Just don't grab, if I forget and I leave a click track in there that, is very evident,
I'm so familiar with click tracks, it would drive me nuts.
Yeah.
I can't stand that. So yeah, I don't read music, but I can play it to some degree. I am limited. I only play in like maybe 2 or 3 keys. I'm primarily a C person.
You'd be surprised. There are a lot of people that fall into that category that they'll just modulate the MIDI information.
Yeah, transpose
and,
it, right?
And do that up. I mean, I've used that technique when I fall into the same key signatures all the time. And only recently have I started playing around with some alternate tuning or like alternate keys, like modes and stuff, and just been like, all right, well, I'm going to play in a major key, but I'm going to drop the sixth, you know what I mean? And use that mode. I forget if it's like a harmonic major or whatever it is. Like that's just it. Like I know enough theory to get myself in trouble, but not so much that I feel like I'm confined by it. Like, oh, you can't do that because the chord doesn't work with them. I don't give a shit. Like I'm gonna write what I hear in my head, which is craziness, and what ultimately the software VSTs, trigger for inspiration for me. And a lot of times it's that. A lot of times it's a sound and a few keys, and I'm like, ooh, what can I do with that? Let's try this. And it's like, what happened to 2 hours?
Yeah.
You know what I
You
mean?
can fall into those, editing, producing, creating track holes where it's good though. But part of it, there's a nervousness, like you're onto something. I'm onto something. I gotta do this now, or I'm onto something.
Or it's just gonna
4 hours go by.
Yeah.
Save. Okay. I got it.
Then I have the opposite. There's times there was like, was it the first D&D album I did back in 2021? There was a track on there called The Ancient Temple, and I actually wrote it for a D&D campaign I was in at the time for my buddy Ryan. And I wrote this thing, or I had started it like a year and a half prior to that. And then I sat down and the track went to a certain point, and then I didn't know what to do next. And then the second I came back to it, like a year and a half later, I knew how to finish it. And that's a weird thing. Like I have tracks, I have like projects that sit on my hard drive for a while sometimes. And then all of a sudden, like 2, 3, 4 of them in the genre I finish, and I'm like, my brain wants to finish cyberpunk right now. My brain wants to work on meditation right now. My brain wants to work on horror, and then I go with it, big magnet. Just let it pull me towards the genre that my brain is thinking, is being creative in at the moment. That's why sometimes I have to punt something that some of my fans are looking for at the time. I'm like, I know you're looking for this. I know you're looking for Christmas music, but I have an accidental jazz album I have to release first, and that's what happened last fall. My accidental jazz. I'm like, what the fuck? How does this happen?
It's weird. Things sneak up and take over, and then you're like, okay, I guess I'm doing this,
Yeah. Yeah, so 14 tunes, which basically is little less than two minimum tracked albums, which, by the way, that's 8 is my goal with every compilation.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's 10 to 15. Other times it's, a 6-song EP, but I literally have like 1 3/4 albums to go to break that 800, so I should probably do that before the end of April.
Yeah, man, 800.
I've got enough tracks.
Huge.
I got enough tracks, so that'll be fun and exciting.
You always got to celebrate too. I think I was showing you this. So I had sent. So our documentary American Expendables about the films of North American Pictures. Tim, 100% of the music is Tim's, and he's also in it. And so put that thing out, didn't think it would become much. Long story short, Vinegar Syndrome put out the video, ETR Media created it. And I had, Vinegar Syndrome only allows 1 film per, you can only buy 1 film. So I bought 1 or 2, send them out. I tried to send them out to everyone who was involved. So yours is coming at the end of April. And then I was like 5 other people I sent them out to. Paul Polino got his early, and he sent me a picture, and it had the Vinegar Syndrome label on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized I didn't do that for myself. And I was like, I got to do that. Life's very short. Vinegar Syndrome is like very highly respected. In regard to horror, probably only the equivalent would be like Criterion Edition for mainstream film, but Vinegar Syndrome. And So I haven't decided if I'm gonna open it. I don't know.
You should do it right now. We should do an unboxing right now. Unboxing.
You think so? Well, I can.
Wait.
I can pretend. Look, I'm tearing it open right now.
That way I can do a short. I could do a cut of this, Tom, and you can promo it.
That's
Oh, that's the slipcover one, right?
Yeah, that's the slipcover one.
That one's sexy.
Got sent a few copies through ETR, but it didn't have the Vinegar Syndrome sticker on the box, so that's kind
Gotcha.
of why I'm like keeping it. But yeah, so that's a slipcover. Front's like this, back's like that. It's got this hilarious
Love it.
polo. Yeah.
Oh, and this, dude, you know what's crazy? Is that whole freaking trend right now.
Now it's a trend. It's a trend
Yeah.
now. This was
What the
before
hell?
that. I have no
I
idea.
know.
I have no idea. Maybe this started it. Who knows? Because this image is.
Imagine,
you could track
imagine
it.
we
This
had
is-
something to do with that.
Yeah, the artist. This is ETR Media's artwork. This is all them. I had nothing to do with it. Incredible stuff. That's the.
And it's got different graphics and shots. There's Debbie on the back and Lloyd,
Yeah. Let me see.
John Brennan.
Tim Kulig.
I'm there. I'm in there somewhere. Focus. The second to last on the list on the right hand side.
Yeah. Right there.
That's me.
A little hard to spot. Whatever. Yeah, but
We're bringing physical media back.
it's back, baby.
And actually, and I think we had an estimate, like they have the slipcover version and then the standard version on there on Vinegar Syndrome's site
Yeah.
to order. And it looks like they did a run of 1,000 each or something. And they're
I can
like,
look. Yeah, I believe
potentially
that's
going to run out.
I think that's
Like-
right. I think that's right. I think they did 1,000 because when when they sent me the link, it was like 800 or 900 for the slipcover, and toggled over to the standard edition, and it was something like similar. Now there's only 365 of the slipcover, 237 of the standard. So essentially,
Like about 600 left. Right?
yeah. So that's basically almost 3/4, right? I mean, close.
There's like a third left.
Yeah, third left. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is great. I think that's a great sign. And I'm hoping, Video Dreams, we're gonna this is the thing for those independent filmmakers out there. We're gonna hit the festivals really hard with Video Dreams. See what we can do. Life's short. This doc is special. It's not that I can't make another one. Like I can make like a VHS 4 that covers like the next 10 years or something. But this one is like, I would say the first half of my film career,
Right. Right.
So, like, to me, it's pretty special. I think we got to, really push it and see where the ceiling is, see what we can do.
Yeah.
But I think that...
Yeah, it also talks about, like, kind of the line and where things are at right now, too, in regards to how to promote yourself as an independent filmmaker in the current
Yeah. Well, the
environment.
lesson I learned, like, first of all, much like that Tarantino story, you have no fucking clue how good your work is. You don't. So just...
Or how many people actually see it, because we don't get the metrics from everywhere.
No.
Right?
No.
No.
So you just have to put the work out there and see what happens. I didn't think American Expendables was worthy of physical release, but no, it's doing super well. And I think hopefully what we can do is do a similar thing with Video Dreams, physical release. I'd actually like to put several of the films on there because now I own the rights to a lot of those films.
Yeah.
So I could
that would be great. And then people have, not only do they have the documentary, but they have like a compendium basically of past work that are like bonus features, like it's Blu-ray, so you can store a ton of stuff on there. And it's like what's on the American Expendables again? What's on that disc?
It's actually got 3 films on there. American Expendables feature-length doc. It's got the 25-minute McLeod documentary about Kevin McLeod.
Yeah.
And then it has an 80-minute director's cut called Fountain of Death. And that's like Atlanta College Profits, like super cut. It's recut and it's got it's in black and white. I call it the black and chrome edition, after Mad Max.
And you picked that name because one of the foreign markets had named it something different.
Yeah.
Right?
That film's featured in Video Dreams, but Atlanta College Profits came out in 2005 and was sold close to 10 territories. I think it was Spain that called it Fountain of Death. It may have been Italy as well. Was it Italy or Spain? I forget. But there was a Russian one. There was a Thai one. There was, I don't know, it was a bunch of them.
It was pretty wild to see that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, because that was back when it was an action film. It was shot on the DVX 100, which shot at 24 frames a second. It got into the market early enough where video back then tended to be 30 frames a second. Looked very electronic, like news, looked cheap. But that prosumer camera, I think, was about $2,500. Could shoot at 24, which looked much closer to film. So we shot an action film that way. And York Entertainment looked at it like, yeah, we love it. We haven't had an action film in a while because they were not doing well financially. So to have an action film, action sells, So
yeah.
They put it out. It killed. It went everywhere. Unfortunately, it was not enough to support the entire company. So that company eventually went out of business. But not before the thing went, like 10 different countries or whatever.
Semi-viral in the physical sense of the
yeah,
word.
I
right?
think so. Yeah. I mean, people were, even a few, I guess it's probably 5 years ago now, maybe. So two different podcasters did they found it in like a Conway, like some kind of like Dollar Tree scenario. And they bought it for like $5 or $1 or something. Yeah. And they're like, what is this? Cause the back does say it's an indie film fest film. I think it won 5 awards. 5 awards from the B Movie Film Festival and a few others. So just trying to tell you what it is. Essentially, it's kind of like a trauma film, though distributed by York. So they watched it and they made fun of it pretty harshly. Okay. And that's fine. It's a very unusual film. At the time, audiences really liked it, and it got fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. It was not, like we were saying, it got on Netflix and Hollywood Video. It did all these things that you wouldn't think a film so small could do. So it was very successful. But fast forward to, I guess that was around 2012. It's like that. Not all films hold their place in society for that long.
Right. They don't. Not everything ages.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Not everything ages well. You go back and watch the comedic likings of some of the auteur class on Saturday Night Live and the movies that they did and the comedy that they put in those movies, racial undertones, sexism, just really like stuff that's not tolerated anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think they're just trying to push the envelope. And back then, they deliberate button pushing.
Yeah.
For shock value, the whole shock jock era.
Which doesn't like the Porky series, like that just doesn't that
one's a little rough. Yeah. But I don't get offended at all by that stuff. I just look at it as you look at it at the culture it was made for at the time.
Right. And to define it by today's standards,
it's just stupid. Yeah.
Missing the point of when it was made and why it was made. You know what I mean?
Either educate yourself as to why it was made that way. I mean, you can make a judgment call on it and say like, I don't like this, But if you don't understand the context of it, it's like maybe you should, just don't watch it or. Turn it off.
Yeah, you don't have to see.
Else.
Nobody's got a gun to your. I mean, I don't think, but nobody's got a gun to your head to watch it. So,
yeah.
As far as I can tell, but yeah, man. So now we're at a stage where with Video Dreams, it's literally just let's figure out what festival we're gonna hit first, and the second we make that decision, it's gonna catalyze that whole cascade of all right. What's the next 12 to 18 months gonna look like? It's true. You know what I mean?
It is complicated because Video Dreams. This is what I'm worried about, Tim. This is, to air my insecurities on the podcast. Video Dreams, I think the feedback that I got from is actually very good. And a lot of people feel it's more accessible because it's kind of like, man's struggle to find success. It's sort of like not man against nature, but man against the world, right? Sort of thing.
Yeah.
And, or filmmaker makes good, whatever you want to say. And so it may have slightly more mainstream appeal. Now, I made that mistake several times in my life. like London Betty was slightly more mainstream, got into Blockbuster, ultimately didn't really resonate. No one talks about that film. So when we're entering festivals, gotta stay true to the underground festival circuits, the genre stuff, all the people that got us there with the first two VHS Massacres. That's gotta be primary. Still got this like 5% of me that still wants to throw the half court shot, still wants to try maybe, Slam Dance or something, maybe Austin. I don't know. Maybe Cannes,
Yeah.
Something like that. Give that a try.
I don't see why not. It would be a timing thing, right?
Yeah.
Like in some cases but then again, we also don't have to make that compromise either. We can start the process at any point we want to. And if one of the festivals decides that they're going to take issue with the fact that they weren't the first place to show it, then
that's a bunch of nonsense. That has no place in 2025. I don't give a fuck if you're Sundance.
Yeah.
You think you're gonna tell me I can't play at other festivals? Go fuck yourself.
Yeah. We threw that out the window a long time ago, but that's the only like stopgap I think we might get with some of those higher end festivals, the more selected ones. And again, like, Sundance, I mean, it's an extension, like we've talked about this ad nauseum, it's an extension of the studio system, and the barrier of entry is just that. It's basically a self-promotion leg. So
they're not.
It doesn't really matter.
No, they're corporate film festivals, and I'm talking so nicely about them, and I'm like talking about entering a few. But the truth is, what?
I'd say it to their face. You know what I mean? I'd be like, I get it. I get you guys are trying to make money and whatever, but it doesn't mean that
you're just they're a showcase. They're an additional movie theater for studio projects.
Yeah.
That's all it is. And that's fine, but just don't pretend you're for the everyman. You're an independent film festival. You're not.
Don't give a guy with a $10,000 budget hope that their $500 entry fee is going to go towards something.
Yeah. And I would argue with VHS Massacre 2, we got into over 30 festivals, 23.
Mm-hmm.
I would argue that combination probably had a larger impact than any Tribeca or Sundance would have had.
Yeah. And it showed in a lot more places because of it.
It showed in, I don't know, it's not 30 cities, but probably 20 cities around the world.
We couldn't have done that independent of that. Independent of, investing the time and the money into the festival circuit. Like that's our release. That's how.
The other thing too is that I have to look at it realistically and go, okay, well, what's going to happen if you were to ever, let's say you get into Tribeca, so what? They can't. The best chance I have is to put out the film through MVD because I get revenue splits. I get money for how many times it's viewed. 2025, they're going to take a low budget doc, and how much are they going to pay me? It's not worth it.
Yeah.
Even if they gave me $20,000 and they had the rights for my film for a decade, it's not worth it because I can't do anything with it for 10 years.
Right.
Right.
They can exploit it or do whatever the heck they're going to do with it, or, put whatever money they want to put behind it. But honestly, you look at the mainstream studio system right now and the movies that you expect people to do today. A case in point was the story I heard about Matt Damon presenting a drama to one of the studios. It's like, hey, it's a low budget, $25 million. And the studio arguing back, it's $100 to break even. And then go through all the numbers and as to why it takes that plus on that. And we just don't take chances like that anymore, And I'd rather put out Mulan 2 or this, any number of sequels to something where it's a recut of the basic premise of the one that caught fire in the beginning to begin with. And you're kind of repackaging that to the public and hoping that they don't dislike it for that reason.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, narrative films, it's a very tough game. I'm actually surprised our flick, Exorcism of Fleet Marriage, is doing so well.
Mm-hmm.
But to put up a narrative film nowadays, dude, I would still do low budget horror, you know.
Yeah, it's cheap, it's fun. There's enough of a fan base in that genre, and they give a lot of leeway, understanding that when you have a limited budget, there's only so much you can do. So when you can pull off like a Terrifier with nothing, with no money, and people see what you can do with that and the horror you can create, and like, you know, like I've never seen, like, full disclosure, I've never seen any of those, but I just know budget wise and what it was able to produce for income. I mean, it was a home run. It just incredible home run. It's why every subsequent movie, they spent so much and they multi-xed the budget to a point where it just kept getting better and better. And it's like, yeah, that's what you do. It's like in regular life, you know, you spend below your means, produce below the means, and your production's going to be profitable. You do freaking, whatchamacallit, the horror film with the doll 2 years ago.
Megan?
It's Megan. You do one of those for $11-14 million and the thing does 200. It's a masterpiece. Like even if they doubled it in freaking promotions just to get to that point.
Yeah, it's a combination of a film. It's funny, it knows what it is. It's winking to the camera, but not in a like weak, I don't know how to write, fourth wall breaking, but just kind of like, we know this is ridiculous kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Marketing was brilliant. You know, it takes a lot. It takes a solid movie with high concept. Killer doll. I mean, you know, it's like Chucky. It's not you know,
not a new concept.
Not a new concept.
Right? Not novel.
Really. Yeah. But or you know, robot AI HAL from 2001. But no, I mean, that's what you need. Like, it's the title's got to be killer. People have to know what it is right way. The concept has to be like really fun or slick. And you have to know what it is. And then that's not to say you're remaking anything, but it's just like something like Sharknado is an example. I don't actually truly think of that as exploitation because it's almost parody. But,
right. And it's guest art, like guest actor and actress, like what is that? Cameo. It's cameo heavy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
it's
like
fun, but
the mad world of Shark Attack.
Yeah. But brilliant,
you know?
Brilliant in the title. Title says everything. Artwork obviously says everything. You know how to market that. You know, you have to think of things like that. That's not to say you can't make some awesome Kubrickian, like The Shining or something like that. But you have to figure out some marketing angle to exploit. And that's literally what exploitation film means. You're picking an angle, you know?
Yeah.
So if you can do that and make it for cheap, you know, I think you got a good shot, you know?
Yeah. It's just know your audience, right? Know what you're going at. Like, you want the biggest bang for your buck, you go with the whole sci-fi horror thing, you know? You can do the sci-fi thing. You can do a really cheesy sci-fi thing. People still dig that. It's weird and it's barely believable with the tech and everything. But you think back, go rewind back to like the early Star Trek days and you know, Lost in Space and stuff. And those sets looked wonky and weird, but they were fun shows. The stories were intriguing. You know, the concept, the far out concept of, you know, living in space and artificial gravity and everything. Like, it's just, you know, and then the science behind the whole Star Trek series. Like, there's now studies and research being done based on the technology that didn't exist, you know, that was, you know, a far out concept that was like, hey, let's just postulate, how would you get down to a planet? Well, we're going to dematerialize and rematerialize down there. Well, it turns out you can do that with subatomic particles, which means at some point maybe we can do it with a whole person, you know, which is bizarre, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it could happen one day, yeah. So
it's wild stuff.
Yeah,
well,
man.
we've been chatting for like 2 hours, so I figure
That's great.
that's probably it. I might even make this a twofer.
Yeah. That'd be great.
I had to do a bye week last week. Well, I didn't technically do a bye week last week. I just didn't publish it through Podbean. I ended up just going straight on YouTube with last week's, and it was me. I was writing an industrial tune, so I did it from scratch and kind of walked through the process with people and was playing around with it. But I only had like a half an hour. I didn't have a lot of time. I'm like, I gotta do some kind of content this week, so it's the forever the journey to make sure you stay in contact with your audience and everything, just let them know, because if you don't tell them what you're doing, they don't know what you're doing,
Yeah, it's true, man. Well, I'm excited for you. I'm excited for you to hit 800. 800 is a huge milestone, and you're a doer, not a talker, man. I think that's awesome.
Same with you, dude. Same with you. So this Video Dreams is, the circuit and the festival run, it's right around the corner. I am super excited to start planning that out and figuring out which one we're going to hit first. Like I said, like the second we know the first one we're going to hit, that's going to trigger a bunch of things. Like, all right, it's going to be at this date, so we know we need to get, the final upload up there and put our best foot forward, blah, blah, blah. And I'm very excited about that. Very excited about that. Very excited about our super secret project.
Oh, yeah. That one's going to be great. Can't wait to talk about that one, yeah.
Can't talk about it yet, though.
Cool, bro. Yeah, going to have a shoot in the summer. It's going to be fun.
Nice.
All right, well.
Nice.
Great talking to you, bro. I'm sure I'll catch up with you on PlayStation at some point.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Right.
Might even be tonight.
Have a good one.
All right, guys. Thanks for checking in. We'll see you.